I found myself in the midst of a heart-wrenching loss. A dear one had left my life, leaving me adrift in a sea of grief. It was during this time that a well-meaning friend suggested something that seemed both crazy and oddly appealing: a solo trip to another country, surrounded by nothing but nature. I mulled over the idea for a while. The thought of escaping my sorrow in the embrace of foreign lands seemed tempting. After a few days of contemplation, I took the plunge and booked a ticket to a destination I'd never been to before. As the day of my departure arrived, I felt a strange mix of excitement and trepidation. Boarding the plane, I watched the world I knew shrink beneath me, replaced by vast stretches of clouds and, eventually, the breathtaking beauty of nature's canvas. Touching down in the foreign soil, I felt a pang of anxiety. My Airbnb, which seemed like a haven in the pictures, turned out to be nestled far away from the bustling heart of the city. Surrounded by trees and the serenity of the wilderness, I hesitated for a moment. Was this the right decision? Would I find solace here? With a deep breath, I decided to trust my instincts and stay. The initial skepticism began to fade as I soaked in the tranquil atmosphere. The melodic symphony of chirping birds and rustling leaves became my lullaby, easing the pain that had been gnawing at my heart. The area, despite its remote location, proved to be a paradise. I explored the property, each corner revealing a new facet of its charm. I found comfort in the solitude, embracing the healing power of nature. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, hunger pangs reminded me of my human needs. I decided to order some local cuisine from a nearby restaurant. Cash in hand, I welcomed the delivery guy who arrived with my meal. However, something about my Rolex caught his eye, and I noticed an odd glint in his gaze as he hurriedly left. I brushed it off as a figment of my imagination, chalking it up to the weariness of my mind. Later that night, as I lay in bed, the stillness of the forest was shattered by an eerie sound: footsteps. Initially, I dismissed it as my imagination running wild, but then a loud bang reverberated through the air, followed by the unmistakable sound of someone tampering with the lock of my door. Panic surged through me, a cold sweat breaking out on my skin. In a frantic rush, I fumbled for my phone and dialed the local police helpline. My words spilled out in a hurried torrent as I explained the situation. The intruders were relentless, their attempts to break in growing more desperate by the second. I knew I had to find a safe haven, and fast. With trembling hands, I sprinted into the bathroom and locked the door, praying for it to buy me some time. Outside, the intruders grew bolder, their voices mixing in a language I couldn't comprehend. Fear gripped me like a vice, squeezing the air out of my lungs. Then the unimaginable happened. The bathroom door quaked under the force of their blows. I pressed myself against it, my heart pounding in my chest, drowning out all other sounds. My mind raced, contemplating the horrifying possibilities that awaited me if they succeeded in their sinister intent. Just when I thought my world was about to shatter, a ray of hope pierced the darkness. The distant wail of police sirens cut through the night, sending the intruders into a panicked frenzy. Their footsteps receded, growing fainter until they vanished entirely. I dared not move, my breath shallow and uneven, until I heard the authoritative knock of the authorities on the bathroom door. Relief flooded over me as I opened the door, tears of gratitude welling up in my eyes. The police assured me that the danger had passed, but the remnants of the terror lingered, clawing at my sanity. My bag containing the cash I had brought was gone, stolen by the would-be intruders. However, my Rolex, a small yet significant comfort, remained on my wrist, a reminder of the night's horrors. In the aftermath of the incident, I made a decision, one that would shape my future travels. I boarded the next flight back home, my mind scarred by the traumatic experience. The idea of venturing alone to a foreign land became an unbearable thought, buried deep within the recesses of my consciousness. The world outside felt treacherous, and the comfort of my home became my sanctuary. It was a humid summer day in the small town where I worked at a tucked-away gas station, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone else. I spent my days managing the shop, dealing with customers, and filling up their gas tanks. Life was simple and predictable until one day, a phone call from my homeland, India, changed everything. It was a call I had been waiting for. My childhood friend was getting married. I hadn't been back to India in years, and the idea of reconnecting with my roots excited me. So I packed my bags, said my goodbyes to my coworkers, and boarded the plane that would take me back to my homeland. As the plane touched down in India, I was greeted by the warm smiles of my family members at the airport. It felt surreal to be back after such a long time. The city had transformed into a bustling metropolis, with towering skyscrapers replacing the familiar skyline of my childhood. I spent the first few days catching up with my family, indulging in home-cooked meals, and reliving old memories. But soon, the urge to explore the city I once knew like the back of my hand took over. My cousin, who had always been my partner in crime during our adventures, offered to show me around. We set out, me sitting at the back, my cousin at the helm, guiding me through the maze of unfamiliar roads. Soon my cousin got a call from home and had to leave the bike, and I had to drive it myself. I was confident that I still knew the roads of the city like just as I did when I was here in my childhood. The wind in my hair and the familiar rumble of the motorcycle beneath me brought back a flood of memories. It was as if I had stepped into a time machine, reliving my carefree days of youth. However, my memory wasn't as reliable as I had hoped. Somewhere along the way, I took a wrong turn, and soon I found myself lost in the labyrinthine streets of the city. I wasn't overly concerned at first, confident that I would stumble upon a familiar landmark that would guide me home. But then the heavens opened up, and rain poured down, obscuring my surroundings. I pulled over beneath an underpass, seeking refuge from the downpour. The raindrops drummed against my helmet, drowning out the world around me. Panic gnawed at the edges of my consciousness as I realized I had no idea where I was. I fumbled with my phone, trying to use the maps while keeping it dry, a nearly impossible task on a rainy night. Desperation led me to turn on my location sharing on Snapchat, hoping that my family could track me down if I couldn't find my way back. With trembling hands, I tried to manipulate my phone through the plastic covering of my rain-soaked gloves. It was a struggle, but eventually, I managed to share my location. As I resumed my journey, the rain began to subside, but darkness had descended, cloaking the city in an inky blackness. I glanced in my rearview mirror and noticed two bikes tailing me, their headlights piercing the night. No matter which turns I took, they followed relentlessly. Fear gripped me, my heart pounded in my chest. I tried to shake them off, but they were persistent. The realization that I was being followed by unknown men on a deserted road sent shivers down my spine. I pushed my motorcycle harder, desperately trying to escape their pursuit. It felt like a scene from a nightmare, my every move shadowed by those menacing headlights. After what felt like an eternity, I finally lost them. I heaved a sigh of relief and pulled over at an empty corner of the road, my hands trembling as I reached for my phone. I called my cousin, narrating the terrifying encounter and my decision to stay put until he could come and get me. As I waited, two figures emerged from the darkness, their faces obscured by shadows and their intentions evident in the glint of a knife. My heart leaped into my throat as they demanded my phone and any cash I had. I complied without hesitation, hoping that surrendering my belongings would ensure my safety. With my phone and money in their hands, the strangers struck me a few times, warning me not to share this incident with anyone. Their threats hung in the air as they disappeared into the night, leaving me battered and terrified. When my cousin arrived, he found me in a state of shock. I recounted the incident, and we decided it was best to head back immediately. The wedding, once a joyful occasion, now seemed like a distant and insignificant event. My sense of security had been shattered, and the city I had once called home now felt like a nightmare waiting to happen. The next day, I boarded a plane back to the United States without attending the marriage ceremony, leaving behind the memories of my homeland tainted by fear and uncertainty. I couldn't shake off the feeling of dread that had settled in the pit of my stomach. Where do I even begin with this story? You know, ever since I was a kid, I've been fascinated with the idea of exploring new places, especially those exotic locations where you can party your heart out, like raves in the middle of mountains or deep inside a forest. Maybe it's the thrill seeker in me or just the sheer love for adventure. But hey, thanks to my job as a dentist, I've got the means to fund these escapades. I won't bore you with the specifics, but let's just say I make a decent amount, more than enough to satisfy my wanderlust. And yes, you guessed it right, I'm still single and living my life to the fullest. So there was this one time when I stumbled upon news about a rave happening in the heart of a forest. I won't reveal the name of the city. I don't want one unfortunate incident to tarnish the image of an entire country. Excitement bubbled inside me as I booked my plane ticket and packed my bags, anticipating another unforgettable experience. I reached the city and found a cozy hotel in the nearest city. The day of the rave arrived, and I woke up to a complimentary breakfast from the hotel, savoring every bite as I prepared for the night ahead. I took a refreshing shower, got dressed, and hailed a cab, giving the driver the necessary details. He dropped me off at the entrance of the party, a bit of a distance away from the actual location. There were already plenty of people gathered there, their energy infectious. I struck up conversations with a few fellow partygoers, and together, we ventured on foot towards the actual rave site. When we finally arrived, my eyes widened in awe at the setup the organizers had put together. It was like stepping into another world, a paradise for party enthusiasts. The music was loud, the atmosphere electric, and the natural surroundings only added to the enchantment of the night. I started with a drink or two, taking it slow, but as the night progressed, I found myself getting caught up in the frenzy of the rave. The combination of the music, the crowd, and the occasional sounds of nature in the background was intoxicating. I danced like there was no tomorrow, losing myself in the rhythm. However, after a few hours, I realized I was reaching my limit. I decided to slow down my drinking and simply enjoy the party. But as fate would have it, my bladder had different plans. I had to visit the bathroom repeatedly, and each time, I had to wait for what felt like an eternity due to the overcrowded facilities. Fueled by impatience and perhaps a little too much alcohol, I decided to venture a bit away from the rave site to relieve myself. I found a tree that seemed perfect for the occasion and started doing my business. Little did I know, this decision would change the course of my night, and not for the better. In my inebriated state, I heard the sound of someone running past me, but I brushed it off, attributing it to my imagination playing tricks on me. However, when I turned around, I saw the silhouette of a man nearby. At first, I thought it was a product of my blurred vision, but then he started running towards me. Before I could react, he slammed into me, knocking me down. The impact was brutal, and I found myself sprawled on the ground, dazed and confused. The man, tall and dark, stood there for a moment, locking eyes with me, his intentions unclear. And then, without a word, he ran away into the darkness. Panic gripped me as I tried to make sense of what had just happened. It felt like a scene from a horror movie, except this was my reality. Shaken to my core, I decided it was time to call it a night. I mustered whatever courage I had left and approached one of the security guards at the rave. I recounted the incident, my voice shaky, and asked for help getting a cab back to my hotel. Thankfully, they were understanding and escorted me to safety. The next day, I woke up in my hotel room, my head pounding from the hangover, but something far worse was lingering in my mind, the realization of what could have happened to me. I shuddered at the thought of the man's intentions, thankful that the encounter hadn't escalated further. The feeling of terror washed over me, leaving me scared and wary. In the aftermath of that incident, I couldn't bring myself to attend any raves, especially in remote locations. The thrill that once fueled my adventures was now tainted by fear. Every time I thought about going to a rave, I found myself researching like crazy, trying to ensure my safety and peace of mind.